Hello, everyone. Welcome to Panawin, offered to you by Sulo, Philippine Studies Initiative at New York University. My name is Luis Francia, adjunct faculty at New York University's Department of Social and Cultural Analysis. This film series, Panawin, which roughly translates into Visions, is being offered through the King Juan Carlos Center, also of New York University, with a grant from the Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs. So I will begin by introducing each one of our distinguished speakers, and I will start with Gil Quito, and I will just read their brief CVs. Gil Quito was consultant for the Museum of Modern Art's major retrospective, A New Golden Age, Philippine Contemporary Cinema. He has co-organized the annual Cinehan Film Festival at the Philippine Consulate in New York. Among his associate or executive producer credits are Loris Guillen's American Adobo, Lav Diaz's From What Is Before, and Children of the Storm, and Sharon Diak's Mientras Su Dormida. His screenplay credits include Gil Portes's America and Mike De Leon's Itim, Rights of May. He has written essays for Cinema Guild, Kino Lorber, Asian Cinevision, the Cultural Center of the Philippines Encyclopedia of Art, and book-length biographies of Marilu Diaz-Abaya and Love Diaz. Fiel Corrales Zabat is an award-winning graphic designer for television, scenic designer for stage, and production designer for films. She has worked with the noted directors of the second golden age of Philippine cinema, like Lino Broca, Ishmael Bernal, Mario O'Hara, and Marilu Diaz-Abaya. She designed the classic Broca film Insiang, as well as Ang Tatay Kong Nanay, Tahana Empoy Tahan, and Moral Carnal alias Baby China for Marilu Diaz-Abaya, and for Mario O'Hara, Castillong Buhangin, and the award-winning Sangandaan for Ishmael Bernal. She is the recipient of the natatanging Gawad Urian Lifetime Achievement Award from the Critics Circle or Manunuri ng Pelikulang Pilipino in 2020. So let me begin with Panawin's curator, Gil Quito. Gil, could you give us an overview of the film series that spans both the fall and spring semesters of NYU's school term, and why you chose to begin the series with Eddie Romero's classic Ganito Kami?
Hi, Luis. Hi, Fiel. The initiative hopes to bring significant works of a very rich cinematic tradition to New York University students and King Juan Carlos Center constituents. Philippine cinema has become a major player in international film festivals lately. For example, filmmakers like Love Diaz winning the Silver Bear at Berlin, given to him by then jury president Meryl Streep, and then the Golden Lion in Venice, or Brillante Mendoza becoming a staple at the Cannes Film Festival, where his films have won Best Director, among other things. And this is really just scratching the surface, because Philippine cinema has a very rich trove. In fact, the industry just celebrated its 100th anniversary in 2019. Unfortunately, much of the rather prodigious output before the Second World War were destroyed during the bombing, and much of what remained perished uh, because of the humid weather and the lack of archival consciousness since then. But after the Second World War, the industry tried to make up for it. And in fact, um, film historians now consider that there have been three golden ages of Philippine cinema so far. And we hope that with this Panawin Visions to um, introduce the NYU and KJCC to significant works from all three golden ages. Um, and the basically the first golden age was in the mid 50s and 1960s, led by directors like Lamberto Avellana and Jerry De Leon, who will be represented in the spring series. And at that time, there were years when film output reached 350 films a year. The second golden age was from the mid 70s to the mid 80s, led by directors like Lino Broca, Ishmael Bernal, who were represented in the fall film series, and Mike De Leon, Marilu Diaz-Abaya. And that was also a time when film writers came to the fore, like Doy Del Mundo and Ricky Lee. And the third golden age considered to be is contemporary cinema, led by Lab Diaz, Brillante Mendoza, Ramona Diaz, so many young people, Mes de Guzman, Sharon Dyack, Eric Mati, you could go on, and they're filling in the film festivals around. And so we'd like to introduce our students and KJCC constituents, not just to the classics, but to something that's happening in very exciting ways these days. Of course, just a footnote that, you know, those three golden ages are basically also just a matter of convenience to identify times when there was a concentration of major works that would pass the test of time. Um, but of course, in the interim period, there were also excellent work done. And also, you know, throughout the history, there was a lot of forgettable stuff done. Actually, most of them forgettable. Well, I guess that's true in any cinema, including Hollywood. Um, so yes, it's really introducing art that appeals to everybody universally, as real art would. As far as beginning the full series with Ganito Kami Ngayon, Ganito Kami Noon, Paano Kayo Ngayon, This Is How We Were, How Are You Now by Eddie Romero. Well, Eddie Romero's career spanned both the first and second golden ages. And it also, the film also is a coming of age, picaresque film, a very colorful, entertaining one. And being a coming of age film, we hope it will resonate with the students. And also, it's set at the end of the Spanish colonial period. The fact that King Juan Carlos Center is co-presenting the series. Um, Also, it's playing at an American university um, since the film ends at the entry of the American colonizers. And also, it's set during that very fraught time when the Philippine Revolution was happening, and people like the main character of the film, a naive peasant, starting to discover a new identity as a Filipino in a nation being born. So it really checks a lot of boxes. Um, and we hope it will kick off a very exciting fall series.
Thank you, Hill. Phil, um, you've worked with Eddie Romero, not necessarily on Ganito Kame, but you've also worked with other notable film directors. Could you give us some idea of what working with directors like Eddie Romero and perhaps a couple of other directors, what was that like for you as a production designer?
With Eddie Romero, because I started with his film with the co-production with China. It's about the real Sulu king who went to China and died there. It's called King and Emperor. It took a lot of like most probably 6 months of research with the University of the Philippines Muslim Studies group, and also with different short films and pictures. Um, all throughout the Philippines to research on the pre-Hispanic era before I mean when before the Sulu king went to China, because in fact before the Philippines was a tributary of China, so we pay tribute to China, to the emperor of China, who then was Emperor Sudi. With Dr. Romero, with Director Romero, he was more into pageantry. He was more uh, colorful. He was more into, the Hollywood that we know. Um, because when I asked him, how do we design this? Do you want it realistic and authentic or pageantry? And he said, pageant. Okay. So what we did was we followed his vision, and the even the even the costumes were designed to it. And of course, China has a very colorful atmosphere. So there was not really that much to be done in China. But well, of course, we had a co-production designer in China, but making the non-existent Sulo, Manila, and Pangasinan of the 1100s to 1200s was difficult. So we really need research. And and Director Romero was very keen in these researches. He's also, of course, Eddie Romero was also a writer. Um, with the other directors that I worked with, Lino Broca, it's another it's another uh, kind of direction where this is realism to the core, and he needed more raw. He needed more raw, the rawness of the atmosphere, the what they call this, the more natural it is. That's what he wants, and also, of course, he tells you what he is doing before doing it. So we are part of the collaborative process, so we understood what he was talking about. Now with Ishmael Bernal, who is going to be in your spring collection, uh, Ishmael taught me how to do visual perspective. Like it has to be that there's no flat surfaces. Even with the other directors, they don't want flat backgrounds. They want deep backgrounds. And with Ishmael Bernal, he used the camera, even the television camera. He taught us how to do that, and he told me how to look at the scene, through the cameras. So I would know how deep the action would be. And for um, Marilu Diaz Abaya, um, being the being one of the last directors that I worked with, she taught me how to handle the camera as per the director, because she taught us all of the crew. She taught us how to direct. And in that form, we knew what she was talking about. We knew why we don't need this kind of what you call this atmosphere. We have to conjure something that is in the script. We have to uh, we have to invent, if possible, what is in the script. But with Marilu, she gave me 100% leeway in whatever I have to do. Um, Other than that, the other thing that I learned about Lino Broca is you have to leave the part. I have I have to know the part of the character in order to design it. So with Inxiang, we had to go really to the slum areas and leave the part there. We stayed there for days, and we learned how the poor people in the slum area lived, which is of course totally different from the world of the cinema that I was working in before.
Thank you, Fiel. So, Hill, Philippine cinema has seen the rise of really wonderful and talented independent filmmakers. Could you tell us something about the independent filmmaking scene and who are some of its leading lights?
Yes. Well, the nadir numerically of Philippine cinema production post Second World War, I would think would be 2005, when about only 50 films were being produced. And there were several reasons for this: economic reasons. One big reason was piracy. And so it was kind of a difficult moment for Philippine cinema, having gone from like 200 films previously. But what saved it was initiatives that uh, were introduced around that time. Initiative started by Cinemalaya. It's basically young people submit entries from hundreds of entries from all over the Philippines, and 10 projects are chosen, and these projects are given seed money. And with the prestige and the seed money, these filmmakers get other uh, investors. And then after this, um, there were like other festivals that um, copied the Cinemalaya uh, model: Cinema One, Quezon City Film Festival, Scenic Maynila, Cine Filipino. So this has been a real percolator of talent from all over the Philippines. And as I've already mentioned, Lav Diaz, Brillante Mendoza, although Lav Diaz actually, uh, before this period, was already producing his own films in basically some obscurity until he broke up in the international film scene later. Other directors that have come to fore were Aurelio Solito, Mes de Guzman. It's really an exciting period of Philippine cinema, thanks to these amazing um, Cinemalaya-like initiatives.
Okay, thank you, Hill. Fiel, as somebody who's been in the film industry business for quite a while, what have been some of the most challenging situations you've been in, and what are some of the challenges do you face that are regularly there for a production designer?
It all depends on the director also. Well, the challenges are numerous. The challenges are in the thousands, but we learn to learn to go around this hurdles. I would like to say that first, the challenge of the production designer um, is, budget. Most of the time, when I was in a film industry, of course, I'm still is, I still am. The budget itself limits the vision, the vision of the production designer. Even if the production designer works closely with the director, somehow budget has put constraints on it. And also, there are some directors, not these directors that I know that I mentioned, but production designers have the what they call this, have the problem of the script the script being revised pronto, and of course, when the script is revised on the set, there are so many requirements that are new requirements that are needed. And of course, we have to rush. So there are times when I had to do my own, in like doing films in the mountains, I have to do my own, all my, the washing, the drying, the what they call it, everything that production designers shouldn't do. But I do it because I need to finish the film right away. And also, sometimes, like for example, the challenges are when the set is being built and we are being rushed. And there are times when we are called as what they call this, cause of delay. Although there's not really, especially when it rains and the sets is affected, uh basically we are all the brunt of censure from the producers. The new directors right now are more, I guess, more malleable. I guess, I hope so, because I worked with two of them and they're very, very, very progressive. uh Although for serious production design, the production designer has to have enough time to prepare everything, especially with historical or period pieces. It's difficult.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Okay, lastly, I'd like to throw this question to both of you. What do each of you view as the future of Philippine cinema? Hill, let's begin with you.
Well, like everywhere else, there is this tug of war between independent cinema and commercial cinema, which is also a big thing in the Philippines. In fact, much of what you see on Netflix are the products of commercial cinema, and much of them, unfortunately, are unforgettable. Are forgettable, fluff, and where the real action is happening in contemporary cinema is in the independent scene. In fact, but they can actually work synergistically in a way, because the major actors appear in commercial cinema and commercial television. That's where they earn their uh, living. And then when some significant project from the independent scene arises, they often um, act in them um, with very little charge or free, because they know that's where their artistic salvation happens. So, as for the future of Philippine cinema, as long as the uh, people and those who have the power support these independent uh, film festival initiatives, I think the future is bright.
Great, thank you, Hill. Fiel, what are your thoughts on the future of Philippine cinema?
There is basically an explosion of movement in the independent cinema, real because of the advent of the digital camera. So from 35, which is very limiting, 35 millimeter, now the digital camera was introduced, and as you would see, so many films are done digitally, and because it has less expenses, then basically it's more attractive to the independent filmmakers, and to that, I'm very encouraged. Uh, that the film cinema will not be like in the doldrums, but with regards to cinema, whether independent or commercial, there is very high hopes for Philippine cinema, only because uh, as art, cinema, and even painting or sculpture, they evolve. It evolves into different forms. So basically, it's the cinema that conforms to the contemporary taste, contemporary environment, contemporary way of thinking. So it also speaks about the times that they are moving in. So I have high hopes for Filipino cinema, and I hope so many more independent young people with more progressive minds can get into filmmaking.
Great, thank you very much, Phil. Hill. Well, there you have it. Both our distinguished speakers have given the audience, everyone, fortunate enough to be seeing the films being offered, an overview, a context that will help make the films much more accessible to the different segments of the audience. So, on behalf of Sulo, Philippine Studies Initiative at New York University, and the King Juan Carlos Center at NYU, I'd like to thank both Hill and Phil for taking the time to be part of this time roundtable. Sorry, thank you and enjoy the series.